Now, I recognize this episode has been fiery and maybe isn't what you want to hear, but I hope it helps you to avoid this super common mistake and to know what you should do instead. So to circle back, don't waste your time writing your whole book or even outlining it. And if you have started doing any of that, put that shit on pause, because unless you already have millions of followers and the proven ability to sell 20,000 copies of your book in the first year, it is super duper likely that you need to build out your author platform first. You do not need to write your book in order to get a book deal. At least not when your goal is to be traditionally published and to write what's known as prescriptive nonfiction, meaning a book that shares advice, teaches how to, or would be considered self-help. If your book teaches someone how to improve their life, then it's super likely you are writing a how-to book of some sort. Heads up, I'm going to use self-help, how-to, and prescriptive interchangeably because within traditional publishing, these books are grouped together, even though there are small nuanced differences between these types of books. However, broadly speaking, self-help, how-to, and prescriptive nonfiction includes books on business, money, personal and business finance, economics, entrepreneurship, leadership, all kinds of spirituality, parenting, health, psychology, often some light science, and even books on specific niches, products, and skills like photography, cinematography, essential oils, political activism, fashion, personal style. You get what I'm putting down. And if you want to write a book like that, this episode and really this whole podcast is for you. In fact, all of my content is directed at you. And if that's not you, if you are not writing a book that offers advice, I suggest that you seek help elsewhere for your book, because publishing advice, like relationship advice, is best when it fits your unique situation. Okay, so why am I doing a whole episode on why you must stop writing your whole book? Because what you're doing is getting in your way, like right now, and I want you to stop it. Simple as that. Let me explain. If you want to be traditionally published, there is no reason for you to write a whole book, because this type of nonfiction is sold to traditional publishers based on a book proposal, not a whole manuscript. I want to pause and give credit where credit is due here and say that this episode was partly inspired by a paid consultation I had with a lovely business consultant named Paul. Shout out to Paul if you're listening. And Paul inspired this episode because he made a super common mistake that I see among entrepreneurs, experts, and creators who love books and writing more generally. He joined a writer's group and subsequently got some really bad advice. So all of Paul's writer friends were drafting their books and submitting query letters to literary agents in search of representation and ultimately a book deal, which is actually the right advice for fiction, for poetry, for children's books, and for narrative nonfiction like memoir. But it was the wrong advice for Paul. And it was actually the opposite of what Paul needed to do. Because Paul, as a business consultant, wanted to write a how-to book. And because of that, what he needed to do in order to get a book deal was to write a book proposal, not a full manuscript. And that brings me to my second reason why you should stop writing your whole book if that's what you're doing. In prescriptive nonfiction, your author platform, or your ability to sell the book when it's published and out in the world, is just as important as the writing or the idea. And sometimes to certain people in traditional publishing, your platform and your ability to sell the book is even more important. So let's go back to Paul. When I reviewed the materials he had written, I saw nothing about his platform outside of the fact that he had a PhD and that his framework was proven, both by anecdotal evidence working with clients and backed by research he had done for his dissertation. And while that was all helpful knowledge, it wasn't what anyone in publishing needs to know in order to say yes to his book. Like many authors, Paul, explained the problem his book would solve really well. He also demonstrated why he was an expert in the topic and the absolute right person to author this book. But he had written absolutely nothing about his audience or his ability to sell books or how many books he could sell. And this is where he made a crucial mistake that I see entrepreneurs, experts, and creators making all of the time. At least once a month, well-meaning folks pop into my inbox with fully completed manuscripts that are likely to go absolutely nowhere, because these authors wrote their books without building an author platform first. And by doing so, completely ignored that traditional publishing is a business and that books are a product. And that in many ways, you as the author are the product. Luckily for Paul, he had booked a paid consultation with me before sending his query out to anyone else. I was able to walk him through my 3P framework like I do with any prospective client. And like most people, Paul's book had the potential to land a literary agent, get a book deal, and ultimately be published. And his author platform, even though it wasn't mentioned in his query letter, existed. He was growing his audience and his ability to sell books. And though he wasn't ready yet, Paul was actually really close to the third P, being able to write a proposal, hopefully with me and my team. But like a lot of authors, Paul had already invested a lot of time into writing the manuscript. And this is where the last hang-up comes in, and it's a sneaky one. He wanted to know what to do with the manuscript in the meantime. And if you need any more proof that you should stop writing your book, here it is. What I want you to recognize is that the gap between Paul and the book deal he wanted wasn't in the manuscript he had written. Instead, it was in his author platform, specifically in being able to grow and show his ability as an entrepreneur and as a business consultant to sell books. And for that reason, tinkering with the manuscript further wouldn't do him any good, right? He had already wasted that time in writing the book. And because he had spent all this time writing the book, his platform growth was slower as a result. Because building a platform, building an audience is a lot like investing. The sooner you get into it and the longer you do it for, the more results you're going to get, right? The more ROI you're going to get, the better return on investment you're going to get. So he had already spent all this time writing a manuscript that wasn't going to go anywhere. So that really didn't do him any favors, and it won't do you any favors either. I promise. In fact, the most successful authors I've worked with have put their dream of writing and publishing a book on pause, often for years, in order to grow their audience and establish a strong author platform first. Why? So they could write a better fucking book in the end and sell that book to more people, which therefore creates a bigger impact overall. And ironically, what I see people resist most, which is pausing on writing the manuscript to establish and grow an author platform, actually involves doing what you ultimately want your book to do, which is make an impact, change lives, generate revenue, grow your audience, and allow you to write. And the irony in that is because the first step to building an author platform is creating intellectual property, often in the form of content, methodology, frameworks, or all of that. And that involves the same work as writing a book. I should know because in any given week, I'm doing all of that. I'm writing actual books for clients while putting together podcast episodes, Instagram reels, writing marketing emails, explaining my framework over and over again, doing all those things. So please, please, please stop writing your whole fucking manuscript because it's not doing you any favors. Instead, focus on the 3 Ps. Once you've got a book idea with potential, the next step is platform. Full stop. Now, I recognize this episode has been fiery and maybe isn't what you want to hear, but I hope it helps you to avoid this super common mistake and to know what you should do instead. So to circle back, don't waste your time writing your whole book or even outlining it. And if you have started doing any of that, put that shit on pause, because unless you already have millions of followers and the proven ability to sell 20,000 copies of your book in the first year, it is super duper likely that you need to build out your author platform first, just like Paul did. Okay, so now I want to hear from you. According to the latest data I have access to, there are over 1,300 of you listening each month to this podcast. That is amazing, okay? And kind of blows my mind at the same time. Love it. I want to make this podcast the most helpful it can be, and to do that, I need to know what y'all think. And luckily, there is a new and incredibly easy way for you to share that with me. Simply go to the show notes and click on the link that says send us fan mail. That will allow you to ask me a question, give me and my team feedback, or really share anything you want to. I cannot wait to hear from you and hear what y'all think. And until next time, cheers to your success. Thanks for tuning into the Kind of a Big Book Deal podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you subscribe and also leave a review. Not only is this good for my ego and annoying for my enemies, but it also helps more entrepreneurs like ourselves find this podcast. Also, I'm pretty sure it's good karma. See you next time.